My brother told me I ruined the aesthetic of his wedding and uninvited me 3 days before the ceremony, forgetting I had paid for every single luxury he was flaunting. He smirked, thinking I was powerless, but I made one phone call that turned his exclusive reception into a total disaster. Before we begin today's story, we have an urgent announcement. Due to technical issues, this channel is shutting down. But don't worry, the stories continue. Please subscribe to our new channel, Daily Drip Stories. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. The fluorescent lights of the urgent care clinic were humming with that low electric buzz that seems to drill right into your skull when you have a migraine. I wasn't there for a migraine, though. I was there because the stress of the last 6 months, specifically the stress of planning and funding a $60,000 wedding that wasn't mine, had finally manifested as a severe ulcer flare-up. I was sitting on the crinkly paper of the exam table, clutching my stomach when my phone buzzed. It was Gail. My younger brother, the golden boy, the groom. I shouldn't have answered. The doctor had told me literally 10 minutes ago that I needed to reduce my cortisol levels or I was going to end up in the hospital properly. But instinct is a funny thing. For 20 years, ever since our dad walked out, I had been trained like a Pavlovian dog to answer whenever Gail called. He might need money, he might be in trouble, he might just need me to fix something. "Hey, Gail," I answered, my voice raspy. "I'm actually at the doctor's right now, can I call you back in?" "Lydia, we need to talk, now." His voice didn't sound worried about me. It sounded cold, detached. It was a tone I had heard him use on telemarketers or waitstaff he felt were too slow, but never on me. Never on the sister who had just signed the check for the vintage champagne he demanded. "Is everything okay with the venue?" I asked, sitting up straighter despite the burning pain in my abdomen. "Did the florist bail? I can call Michael and have him look at the contract if—" "The venue is fine," Gail interrupted. There was a pause, a heavy, suffocating silence that made the air in the small room feel thin. "It's about the guest list for the reception." "The guest list is finalized, Gail. The wedding is in 3 days. I already sent the final head count to the caterer on Monday. I paid the expedited fee you guys wanted for the extra lobster tails." "Yeah, about that," he said, and I could hear a rustling sound in the background. I realized he wasn't alone. I could hear a soft, high-pitched giggle. Tiffany. Tiff and I were going over the seating chart for the video. You know, for the live stream and the exclusive content we're filming for her brand partners. "Okay," I said, confusion clouding my pain. And look, there's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to be real with you," Gail said, his voice taking on a strange, practiced cadence like he was reciting a script. "You don't fit the vibe, Lydia." I blinked, staring at the anatomy poster on the wall, a diagram of the human heart. "I don't. What?" "The vibe," he repeated, louder this time. "Tiffany's brand is very specific. It's modern boheme luxury. And you, look, you're great, you're my sister, but you're very corporate, you're stiff. And honestly, Tiff thinks your energy is going to throw off the aesthetic of the head table. We want people who look the part." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "Gail, are you telling me I'm uninvited? To your wedding?" "No, not the wedding," he laughed, a dismissive, airy sound. "You can come to the church ceremony. Mom wants you there. But the reception, the dinner, the party at the estate, that's for the influencers and the industry people. We just don't think you'd belong there. You'd be uncomfortable anyway, standing around in your outlet mall dress while everyone else is in couture." My outlet mall dress. The dress I had bought because I had spent every spare dime of my savings on his caterer, his open bar, and his 3-piece custom suit. "I paid for the reception, Gail," I whispered, the room spinning. "I paid for the food you're going to eat. I paid for the chair you're telling me I can't sit in." "And that was a really nice gift, Lydia. We appreciate it," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "But a gift is a gift. You don't give a gift with strings attached. That's manipulative. Don't be manipulative. Gail. Look, I have to go. Tiff needs me to approve the napkin folds. Just come to the church, sit in the back so you aren't in the main shots, and then head home. It's better this way. Bye. The line went dead. I sat there, the silence of the room deafening. The Bernie. NG in my stomach was gone, replaced by a cold, hollow numbness. It wasn't just the rudeness. It wasn't just the entitlement. It was the realization that to him, I wasn't a person. I wasn't a sister. I was an ATM with a pulse. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. It was worse than the physical pain. It was a spiritual gutting. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember picking up my prescription. The next few hours were a blur of gray fog and sharp, stabbing heartache. I sat on my beige sofa, the one I'd had for 8 years because I couldn't afford a new one while paying for Gail's studio time, and stared at the wall. My phone rang again. It was Camilla, my mother. For a brief, foolish second, I thought she was calling to apologize. I thought surely she heard. Surely she told him he was out of his mind. Lydia, her voice was breathless, frantic. Gail just told me you were upset. Please, please tell me you aren't going to make a scene. I felt a laugh bubble up in my throat, dry and bitter. A scene? Mom, he kicked me out of the reception. The reception I paid $45,000 for. Oh, stop throwing numbers around, it's so tacky, she snapped. He's under a lot of pressure, Lydia. Tiffany has these sponsors coming, and they need everything to be picture perfect. You know how you get. You get frantic, you hover, you try to control things. It stresses Gail out. I hover, I asked, my voice trembling. I hover because I'm the one signing the checks, Mom. I'm the one making sure the vendors actually get paid so they don't get sued. And that's why you're the strong one, she said, her tone shifting to that manipulative sweetness she had perfected over decades. You've always been the strong one, the provider. Gail needs his moment to shine. He needs to feel like a man, like a king. If you're there, reminding him of bills and contracts, you diminish him. Can't you just give him this one night? Can't you just be generous of spirit? He told me I didn't belong, I said, tears finally spilling over. He said I looked cheap. He's just nervous. He didn't mean it. Just come to the church, smile for a few photos if they ask, and then go home and rest. You said you were sick anyway, right? This works out for everyone. She hung up before I could argue. That was the dynamic. Gail broke things, I paid for them, and Mom told me I should be grateful for the privilege of cleaning up the mess. I lay back on the couch, the tears hot on my face. I looked around my apartment. It was clean, modest, functional. I was the senior financial controller for a mid-sized logistics firm. My life was spreadsheets, compliance, risk assessment, and contracts. I wasn't an influencer. I didn't have an aesthetic. I stood up and walked to my home office. On the desk sat a thick binder labeled Gail and Tiffany wedding vendor contracts paid. I opened it. There were the receipts. The venue rental, $12,000. The catering contract, $18,000. The florist, the DJ, the custom lighting package Tiffany insisted on. I flipped to the catering contract. It was a standard service agreement. I scanned the lines of text I had memorized weeks ago. My eyes landed on the signature line at the bottom. Client name, Lydia Vance. Not Gail Vance, not Tiffany Moore. Me. I flipped to the venue contract. Client name, Lydia Vance. The bar service, client name, Lydia Vance. My tears stopped. A cold clarity washed over me, sharper and more potent than the pain from the ulcer. They saw me as a wallet. They saw me as a utility. They thought that because I was family, because I was boring Lydia, I would just roll over and take it. They thought that once the money was spent, it was theirs. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. In my line of work, we don't just sign contracts, we enforce them. And every single contract in that binder had a force majeure clause and, more importantly, a client cancellation clause. I reached for my phone, but this time I didn't call Gail. I called Michael. To understand why this hurt so much, you have to understand the history. I didn't just pay for a party. I paid for Gail's life. When our dad left, I was 12 and Gail was 6. Mom fell apart. She was always fragile, more of a porcelain doll than a parent. So, I became the parent. I got a job at 16 to pay for Gail's braces. I went to a state school on a scholarship and worked nights so I could send money home for Gail's, music lessons, and art camps. When I was 25, making my first real money, I paid off Mom's credit card debt. When Gail wanted to be a graphic designer but didn't want to work for a company because it stifled his creativity, I paid his rent for 2 years while he built his portfolio. His portfolio was still empty, but his closet was full of designer sneakers. And then came Tiffany. I met Tiffany 2 years ago. Gail brought her to Thanksgiving. She walked into my apartment, looked at my spread of food, which I had spent 2 days cooking, and wrinkled her nose. "Oh, is this gluten?" she had asked, pointing at the stuffing. "Gail, babe, you know I can't be around gluten. It makes my skin look puffy on camera." She was 22 then, a drop-dead gorgeous girl with a phone permanently glued to her hand. She wasn't just addicted to social media, she lived inside it. Every moment was content. Every interaction was a transaction. During the wedding planning, her true colors didn't just show, they exploded. "Lydia," she had said during a tasting 3 months ago, sipping a wine I was paying for, "we need to upgrade the linens. These tablecloths feel polyester." "They are polyester, Tiffany," I had said, checking my budget spreadsheet. "Silk linens would add another $4,000. She had rolled her eyes, looking at Gail. "See? This is what I mean. She has no vision. Babe, if we have polyester tablecloths, the Vogue submission is dead. Do you want to kill our chances at Vogue over $4,000? Gail had looked at me with those puppy dog eyes. "Lydia, come on. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Can't you just move some money around? Maybe dip into your 401k? You can always make it back." Dip into my 401k. I should have stopped it there. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I paid for the silk. I paid for the imported orchids. I paid for the custom ice sculpture of their initials. Why? Because I wanted them to be happy. Because I wanted to be a good sister. Because I thought that if I gave them everything they asked for, eventually, they would say thank you. I looked at the binder again. They didn't want a sister. They wanted a sponsor. Michael picked up on the second ring. Michael has been my best friend since college. He's also a shark of a contract lawyer who has been telling me for 5 years that I needed to cut my family off. "Lydia," he said, sounding alert, "you sound weird. Are you okay?" "No," I said, my voice steady now, hardened by the realization of what I had to do. "I need you to look at some contracts for me, Mike." "What happened?" "Gail uninvited me to the reception. He said I don't fit the aesthetic." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, a low, dangerous sound, Michael laughing, not a happy laugh, a scary laugh. "He did what?" Michael asked. "He kicked me out, but he kept the money." "Oh, Lydia," Michael said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "He really is the stupidest man I've ever met. Send me the PDFs. We're going to have some fun." I hung up and looked at the clock. It was Wednesday evening. The wedding was Saturday. I had 48 hours to execute the most supply chain efficient destruction of an event in history. My phone pinged with a notification. It was Instagram. Tiffany had posted a story. I clicked on it. It was a video of her and Gail clinking glasses of expensive scotch, my money in their apartment, rent paid by me. "So excited for the big day?" Tiffany squealed into the camera, using a filter that made her eyes look like alien saucers. "We just finalized the guest list. It's going to be so exclusive. Only the people who truly match our vibration. No negative energy allowed, just pure, high-value luxury." Gail kissed her cheek. "It's going to be perfect, babe, no distractions." No distractions, that was me. I was the distraction. I watched the video loop 3 times. "High-value luxury," I whispered to the empty room. I opened my laptop. Let's see how high value it is when the bill comes due. Thursday morning broke with a gray, persistent drizzle that matched my mood perfectly. I was sitting in Michael's office, a sleek, glass-walled corner suite that smelled of espresso and expensive leather. On the mahogany desk between us lay the binder, my binder, spread open like a war map. Michael was reading the venue contract, his eyebrows climbing higher with every paragraph. He hummed, a low, satisfied sound that usually meant he had found a loophole large enough to drive a truck through. "You really covered your bases, Lids," he said, tapping a specific clause with his pen. Clause 14b, primary client authority. And here, the indemnity clause, you didn't just sign as a guarantor, you signed as the sole contracting party. "I told you," I said, taking a sip of the black coffee he'd handed me. "I treat everything like a supply chain agreement. I need control over the deliverables." "Well, you have it," Michael said, leaning back in his chair and steepling his fingers. "Legally, this wedding isn't Gail and Tiffany's event. It's your event. They are merely let's call them the entertainment. You have the right to modify, alter, or cancel services at your discretion, provided you cover the cancellation fees." "I don't care about the fees," I said, my voice hard. "I care about the message." "So what's the plan? We sue them for reimbursement." "No," I shook my head. "If I sue them, they'll just play the victim on social media. They'll spin it that the evil sister is suing the young lovers. They don't have any money to pay me back anyway. I want them to feel it. I want them to understand what it actually costs to be luxury when you aren't footing the bill." I pulled out my phone. "I'm going to call the vendors, all of them. I need to know exactly what the status is on the ground." "Good," Michael grinned, spinning his laptop around to face me. "While you do that, I'm going to do a little digging. A girl like Tiffany, who cares this much about appearances, usually has a few cracks in the foundation. I'm going to run a background check her credit history, see if our influencer is actually influential." I nodded and dialed the number for the catering company first, Elite Palette Events. They were the most expensive caterers in the city. The head chef, Marco, was a culinary genius, but he was known for being temperamental. "Elite Palette, Marco speaking." The voice on the other end was clipped, stressed. "Marco, it's Lydia Vance." There was an immediate shift in his tone. A heavy sigh of relief rattled the speaker. "Ms. Vance, thank God. Please tell me you are calling to approve the overtime for the staff. Your sister-in-law called me at 6:00 a.m. demanding we change the entire menu from plated service to grazing tables because plated dinners are out. Do you have any idea the logistics involved in that 3 days out?" My grip on the phone tightened. "She called you. Did she mention who was paying for the change?" "She said, and I quote, 'My fiancé's sister will handle it, she's just the wallet.' Then she hung up on my sous chef." I felt the blood pound in my ears. "She called me the wallet." "She did," Marco said, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. "Ms. Vance, I have to be honest with you. My staff is close to walking. We deal with difficult brides, but the disrespect is on another level. She shouted at one of my servers yesterday during the walkthrough because he looked too poor to be in her background shots. She demanded he wear a tuxedo. We provide standard black bistro attire." "Marco," I said, choosing my words carefully, "I want you to listen to me very seriously. Do not change the menu. Do not buy new uniforms. In fact, I want you to prepare for a different kind of instruction." "What do you mean?" "I am the client, correct?" "Yes, absolutely. Your name is on the check." "Good, I'm going to need you to be ready to pack up. Not now, but on Saturday, I'll give you a signal." There was a pause, then a slow, dark chuckle from the other end. "Ms. Vance, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? If she treats your staff like dirt, Marco, maybe she doesn't deserve your food. Can you hold the line until I say so? I'll pay the full contract regardless. Your staff gets their tips guaranteed, but the food might not be served. For you, Ms. Vance, after she called my sous chef a servant, I'll have the truck engines running." I hung up, a cold sense of power settling in my chest. I called the florist next. Same story. Tiffany had screamed at them about the shade of the hydrangeas, claiming they were off-brand. I called the venue manager. He was practically in tears. Tiffany had tried to get him fired because the sunset wasn't aligning with the archway she wanted. Every single person involved in this wedding hated her. They were only enduring it because of me, because of my payments. I looked up at Michael. His face was pale. He was staring at his computer screen, scrolling through a document. "Lydia," he said, his voice serious, "you need to see this." The rehearsal dinner was a loose term. Since I had refused to pay for a separate formal dinner the night before, drawing the line at the $45,000 I'd already spent, Gail and Tiffany had organized a VIP cocktail hour at a trendy rooftop bar downtown. I wasn't invited to that either. But I knew they would be at the venue beforehand for a final walkthrough. I drove there Thursday evening, the gravel crunching under the tires of my 10-year-old sedan. The venue was a stunning restored vineyard estate. It was elegant, timeless, and completely wasted on them. I found them in the main banquet hall. Tiffany was standing in the center of the dance floor, holding her phone up, filming herself spinning around. Gail was trailing behind her, holding her purse and a portable ring light. "And here is where the magic happens," Tiffany chirped to her invisible audience. "We secured this exclusive estate just for you guys. It's all about creating a legacy of beauty." "A legacy you didn't pay for," I said, my voice echoing in the large, empty hall. Tiffany stopped spinning. She lowered the phone, her face twisting into a sneer as she saw me walking toward them. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked annoyed, like I was a mosquito that had buzzed into her resort suite. "Lydia," Gail said, stepping in front of her defensively. "What are you doing here? I told you the venue is closed to non-essential personnel right now. Tiff is filming content." "Non-essential personnel?" I repeated, stopping a few feet away. "I'm the one who rented the floor you're standing on, Gail." "We've been over this," Tiffany cut in, stepping around Gail. She looked immaculate, her hair perfectly waved, her outfit worth more than my car. "Money doesn't buy you access, Lydia. It buys you gratitude, and we're grateful, but you need to understand boundaries. You simply don't fit the aesthetic we're curating. Look at you." She gestured vaguely at my tailored work slacks and blazer. "You look like you're going to a tax audit. It's depressing. I can't have that energy near the head table." "I spoke to Marco," I said, ignoring her insult. "He told me you called me the wallet." Tiffany rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. That man is a drama queen. He's just mad because I have standards." "And yes, Lydia, let's be real. That is your role here. You're the provider. Some people are the talent, some people are the investors. You're an investor. You should be happy your money is going toward something beautiful instead of whatever boring life you lead." I looked at Gail. "Is that what you think too? I'm just an investor." Gail looked down at his designer loafers. "Lydia, don't make this a thing. Tiff is just stressed, but she has a point. You've always been good at the money stuff. We're the creatives. It's a partnership." "A partnership implies mutual respect," I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. "I'm giving you one chance, Gail, one chance to fix this. Re-invite me to the reception. Put a seat at the head table. Acknowledge what I've done for you." Tiffany laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound. "No, absolutely not. The seating chart is locked. The calligraphy is done. I am not ruining the symmetry of the table for your ego. If you want to come so bad, you can stand in the back with the waitstaff. Actually, maybe you can help them clear plates. You'd probably feel more comfortable doing that anyway." I stared at her. The audacity was so absolute, it was almost impressive. "You really think you're untouchable, don't you?" I asked quietly. "I'm the bride," she smirked. "I am untouchable. And honestly, you should be thanking me. I'm giving your brother the platform he deserves. What have you ever done for him besides baby him? I'm making him a star." "You're making him a broke accessory to your fraud," I said. The smile vanished from her face. "Excuse me." "I know about the sponsors, Tiffany," I lied, well, halfway lied. I suspected the sponsors were fake, but I needed to see her reaction. I know that Champagne & Co. didn't actually sponsor the bar. I paid for it, but you're tagging them in your posts implying a partnership. That's fraud. You don't know what you're talking about, she snapped, but her eyes darted to Gail nervously. That's how the industry works. Fake it till you make it. Gail, get her out of here. She's ruining my mood. Go home, Lydia, Gail said, his voice cold. He stepped toward me, physically blocking me from Tiffany. You're just jealous. You're jealous that Tiff is beautiful and successful and you're alone. Just go. And don't bother coming to the church if you're going to be like this. I'll be at the church, I said, backing away. I wouldn't miss the show for the world. As I walked out, I heard Tiffany mutter, God, she's such a miserable cow. Make sure security knows not to let her into the reception hall. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, my hands trembling. Not from sadness, from adrenaline. They had doubled down. They had insulted me, mocked me, and confirmed exactly who they were. I picked up my phone and texted Michael. Green light, tell me what you found. Friday was a blur of calculated silence. I didn't call Gail. I didn't text Mom. I went to work, I sat in my office, and I finalized the plan. Michael met me for lunch. He slid a thick manila envelope across the table. You were right to be suspicious, Michael said, taking a bite of his sandwich. Tiffany Moore isn't an influencer. She's a professional debtor. I opened the file. It was a dossier of financial ruin. 3 maxed-out credit cards in her name, Michael listed off. A repossessed Range Rover last year. And here's the kicker. She has a judgment against her from a former landlord in Miami for $20,000 in unpaid rent and damages. She trashed the place, creating content, and then bolted. How is she paying for anything? I asked, scanning the documents. She isn't, Michael said. You are, and Gail is. He pointed to the last page. My stomach dropped. It was a credit report for Gail. She got him to open a joint line of credit 3 months ago, Michael said softly. It's already maxed out. $15,000. Probably for her engagement, ring upgrade, and that exclusive trip to Cabo she posted about. He's broke, I whispered. He's worse than broke, he's in debt. And she's using this wedding to try and pivot, Michael explained. I looked into her brand. She's selling tickets to the live stream, Lydia. She's charging her followers $50 for VIP access to watch the wedding. She's claiming it's a charity gala, but the charity is registered to a P.O. box she owns. She's grifting her followers using my money, I realized. She's monetizing the flowers I paid for, the food I paid for. Exactly. If you pull the plug, her scam collapses. She has to refund those tickets. She gets exposed. I closed the folder. I have to tell him. Lydia, Michael warned, he won't listen. I have to try. He's my brother. I drove to their apartment Friday night. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it was futile. But the sister in me, the one who had put Band-Aids on his scraped knees, couldn't let him walk off a cliff without one last scream. Gail opened the door. He looked exhausted. There were bags under his eyes. What do you want? He asked, not letting me in. I have proof, Gail, I said, holding up the envelope. She's lying to you. She's in massive debt. She's using your credit. She's selling tickets to the wedding. Gail stared at the envelope. For a second, I saw a flicker of doubt. He looked back into the apartment where I could hear Tiffany laughing on the phone. She told me about the tickets, Gail said, his voice flat. It's a business move. We're building a brand. It's fraud, Gail, and look at this. She owes 20 grand in Miami. She's going to drag you down with her. I tried to shove the papers into his hand. He slapped them away. The papers scattered across the hallway floor. Stop it, he shouted. Just stop. You can't stand that I'm happy. You can't stand that I found someone who actually believes in me instead of just trying to control me. She doesn't believe in you. She's using you. She loves me, Gail screamed, his face red. And tomorrow, I'm marrying her. If you try to ruin this, Lydia, if you try to show anyone these papers, I will never speak to you again. I mean it. You will be dead to me. Tiffany appeared in the doorway behind him, wrapped in a silk robe. She looked at the scattered papers, then at me. A slow, cruel smile spread across her face. "Oh, look," she purred. "The accountant brought spreadsheets. How cute. Close the door, babe. We have beauty sleep to catch up on." Gale looked at me one last time. There was no love in his eyes, only resentment. "Get out," he said. He slammed the door in my face. I stood there in the hallway, staring at the wood grain of the door. I didn't cry. I didn't bang on the door. I bent down, calmly gathered the papers, and put them back in the envelope. The sister who protected him was gone. She had died the moment he slammed that door. I walked back to my car. I took out my phone and sent a text to Marco, the caterer. Text, execute plan A, wait for the signal. I sent a text to the venue manager. Text, be ready to kill the lights. And finally, I texted Michael. Text, it's done. Prepare the termination notices. They wanted a show. I was going to give them the finale of a lifetime. The wedding ceremony was a masterpiece of superficiality. It was held in a historic chapel that smelled of beeswax and old money, money that came directly from my checking account. I sat in the very last pew, just as I was told. I wore my utilitarian navy dress, watching the backs of strangers' heads. The pews were filled with people I didn't know. Influencers with ring lights clipped to their clutches, minor local celebrities, and an army of Tiffany's, friends, who spent the entire mass checking their makeup in selfie mode. Mom was in the front row, weeping into a lace handkerchief, clutching the arm of a man I realized was her new boyfriend of the week. When the priest asked if anyone had just cause to object, the silence in the room was thick. I felt a physical pull in my chest, a desperate urge to stand up and scream, yes, she's a fraud, he's an idiot. This is a financial suicide pact. But I stayed seated. I kept my mouth shut. I needed them to sign that marriage license. I needed Gale to legally bind himself to her. I had warned him. I had brought him the evidence. He had chosen to slam the door in my face. Now, he had to live in the house he built. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the priest said. They kissed. Tiffany popped her foot up like a character in a rom-com. The guests cheered, phones raised high to capture the content. The trap was sprung. I slipped out the back door before the recessional started. I drove to the reception venue alone, the silence of my car a stark contrast to the chaos I was about to unleash. The reception was held at the Vineyard Estate, a sprawling property with vaulted ceilings. ND panoramic views. By the time the guests arrived, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the tables set with the silk linens and imported china I had purchased. I stood in the shadows near the kitchen entrance, watching. The guests flooded in, oohing and eyeing. They found their seats. The VIPs took the tables nearest the dance floor. The head table was a monstrosity of white roses and crystal candelabras. Gale and Tiffany made their grand entrance an hour later. The DJ, paid by me, blasted a remix of a pop song. They danced in, beaming. Tiffany was glowing, soaking in the adoration of her followers who were live-streaming the moment. They sat at their throne-like chairs. Tiffany grabbed the microphone. "Welcome, everyone," she squealed. "We are so blessed to share our love story with you. Tonight is about luxury. It's about abundance. It's about the elite vibration we all share. So please drink, eat, and tag us in everything." She looked out at the crowd, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I was standing by the swinging kitchen doors, arms crossed. She smirked. It was a small, triumphant twitch of her lips. She thought I was there to serve. She thought I had accepted my place as the help. She turned to the waiter standing near her. "Bring the champagne tower. Now, we need the toast shot for the stream." The waiter didn't move. He looked at me. I nodded. The waiter walked over to the head table, leaned down, and whispered something in Tiffany's ear. Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" she asked loudly. The microphone was still on. Her voice echoed through the hall. "What do you mean, no?" The room went quiet. The murmuring stopped. "I mean, ma'am," the waiter said, his voice projecting clearly. "We have been instructed to see service." "See service?" Gail asked, standing up. "What are you talking about? Just bring the bottles." "There are no bottles, sir," the waiter said. He gestured to the bar. The guests turned. The bartenders were methodically placing the expensive liquor bottles back into crates. They were corking the wine. They were shutting down the taps. "What is going on?" Tiffany shrieked, standing up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This is a prank. Who is doing this?" "I am," I said. My voice wasn't amplified, but in the stunned silence of the room, it carried perfectly. I walked out of the shadows and onto the dance floor. The click of my heels on the hardwood was the only sound. I didn't look angry. I didn't look frantic, as my mother liked to say. I looked like a senior financial controller conducting an audit. "Lydia," Gail looked at me, confusion warring with panic in his eyes. "What are you doing? Go back to the kitchen." "I'm not going back to the kitchen, Gail," I said calmly, stopping 10 feet from the head table. "And neither is the food. Marco." I signaled to the kitchen doors. Marco, the head chef, walked out. He wasn't carrying a silver platter. He was wearing his street clothes, a leather jacket and jeans. Behind him, the entire kitchen staff filed out, carrying their knife rolls and personal bags. "What is this?" Tiffany screamed, her face turning a blotchy red. "Where is my lobster? Where is the filet mignon?" "It's in the truck," Marco said, his voice dripping with disdain. "We packed it up 10 minutes ago. We don't serve people who abuse our staff. And we certainly don't serve events that have been canceled by the client." "Canceled?" Tiffany laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "I didn't cancel anything. I'm the bride." "You're the bride," I corrected her, "but you're not the client." I pulled the binder from my tote bag. I held it up. "I signed the contracts, Tiffany. Me, the wallet. The stiff corporate sister who didn't fit your aesthetic. I am the sole contracting party for the venue, the catering, the flowers, and the bar." I turned to the room. 100 phones were pointed at me. The live stream was capturing every second. "For those of you live streaming," I said, addressing the guests directly, "you might want to know that the couple you're celebrating paid for absolutely nothing you see here. In fact, the bride mocked me, the person who funded this entire event, and told me I didn't belong at the reception I paid for. She uninvited me." A gasp rippled through the room. I saw my mother in the corner, her hand over her mouth, looking like she was about to faint. "She wanted an aesthetic," I continued, looking back at Tiffany. "She wanted a vibe. Well, here is the reality. The reality is that without my money, there is no luxury. There is no lobster. There is no champagne." "You can't do this," Gail shouted, stepping down from the dais. He looked small, weak. "Lydia, this is insane. You're humiliating us." "You humiliated yourself, Gail," I said. "I tried to warn you. I came to your door yesterday with proof that she was using you. You slammed the door in my fa. See, you chose her. You chose the lie." I turned to the venue manager, who was standing by the lighting rig. "Cut it," I said. Clunk. The soft, romantic amber uplighting vanished. The flattering pin spots on the floral arrangements died. In their place, the overhead, cleaning lights flickered on. They were harsh, bright fluorescent tubes used for janitorial work. The room was instantly stripped of its magic. The peeling paint in the corner was visible. The scuff marks on the floor were exposed. Tiffany's heavy contour makeup looked sudden and garish in the unforgiving light. The illusion was shattered. "We're closed," the venue manager shouted. "Everyone out. The client has terminated the rental agreement effective immediately." "No," Tiffany screamed, grabbing the tablecloth and yanking it. Vases crashed to the floor. Water spilled everywhere. "You're ruining my life. My followers are watching. Turn the lights back on." "Your followers are seeing the real you for the first time," I said. The guests didn't wait. They were hungry, they were sober, and the vibe was dead. The elite crowd had no loyalty. They stood up, grabbed their purses, and started streaming toward the exits, muttering about how tacky this was. "Wait, don't go," Tiffany chased after a group of influencers. "We can order pizza, we can." They ignored her. Within 5 minutes, the hall was empty. Just the dirty tables, the harsh lights, and the three of us. "You be *TCH, Tiffany hissed, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "I will sue you. I will sue you for everything you have." "Go ahead," I said, reaching into my bag one last time. I pulled out the envelope I had tried to give Gail the night before. I tossed it onto the wet, flower-strewn table. "My lawyer, Michael, is already filing a countersuit for the deposit fraud on the charity tickets you sold," I said. "And since you are now legally married, Gail, congratulations. Her debt is now your debt. That $20,000 she owes in Miami, that's yours now. The maxed-out credit cards, yours." Gail picked up the envelope. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the paper. He read the top sheet. He looked at Tiffany. You said you owned your apartment in Miami," Gail whispered. "This says you were evicted." "Babe, don't listen to her," Tiffany sobbed, reaching for him. Gail pulled away. He looked around the empty, ugly room. He looked at the exit where his friends had fled. He looked at me. "Lydia," he choked out. "Lydia, please, fix this." I looked at my brother, the boy I had raised, the boy I had protected from the world. "I can't," I said. "I didn't pay for the cleanup crew." I turned around and walked out. The fallout was spectacular. Because so many influencers were live streaming when I pulled the plug, the clip of the lights turning on and Tiffany screaming went viral. But not in the way she wanted. The internet is a cruel place, but it hates a scammer more than anything. Within 24 hours, #wedding_fail was trending. People dug up Tiffany's old debts. The charity she was raising money for was exposed as a fake entity. The platform she used to sell tickets banned her and issued automatic refunds that were deducted from a bank account that had $0 in it, pushing them instantly into massive overdraft. Gail tried to call me a week later. I didn't answer. I listened to the voicemail, though. "Lydia, she's gone," he sounded drunk. "She left. She took the car, but the bank repossessed it 2 days later. I'm in so much trouble, Lids. The credit card companies are calling me. The venue is trying to charge me for the broken vases. I don't know what to do. Mom is crying every day. Please, I need my sister." I sat on my new couch. A beautiful, velvet navy sectional I had bought with the refund money I eventually got back from the liquor distributor. Unopened bottles are returnable. I thought about calling him back. I thought about writing a check to cover the broken vases. It would be so easy. It would be the habit of a lifetime. But then I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My skin was clear. The ulcer pain was gone. I had slept 8 hours every night for the last week. I pressed delete. Then I went into my contacts and pressed block. I wasn't his sister anymore. I was Lydia Vance, and for the first time in 32 years, my resources were allocated to the only client who actually mattered, me. Michael and I went out for dinner that night to celebrate. We went to a small, quiet Italian place. No influencers, no ring lights, just good food and honest conversation. "You know," Michael said, pouring me a glass of wine. "You saved him in a way. If you hadn't stopped it, he would have wasted 10 years on her instead of just 6 months." "I didn't do it to save him," I said, taking a sip. The wine tasted like freedom. "I did it to save myself." Gail and Tiffany are still legal. Lie married, as far as I know. Divorce costs money, and neither of them has any. They are stuck in a prison of their own making, bound by debt and a marriage license they signed for clout. As for me, I have a trip to Italy booked for the fall. Solo, first class. And I plan to wear whatever I want, because my aesthetic is paid in full.